Restless days of feeling insecure makes it even harder to endure. There's a way that you can make me smile, only if you hold me for a little while. There's a way, baby, that you can make me smile, only if you hold me for a little while. Hold me tight, hold me tight, never let me go. Hold me tight, baby, never let me go. Is this a dream when I say you and I were meant to be for eternity? Is it a fantasy, baby, when I say we belong together? Squeeze me, baby, squeeze me, baby, baby, squeeze me, never let me go, go, go. Oh, baby, squeeze me, baby, squeeze me, baby, oh, baby, squeeze me, never let it go. Hold me tight, hold me tight, never let go. Hold me tight, hold me tight, never let go. Never let me go, never let me go, never let me go, never let go, never let me go, never let me go, never let go. Squeeze me, baby, squeeze me, baby, baby, squeeze me, never let go. Oh, darling, squeeze me, baby.
Wow, that was a great music. Hello, guys. Thank you for joining us once again. I'm joined today with a great panel where we are going to be discussing mental health, which is a great and a special topic, especially with everything that we are going through in this pandemic. We have had so many experiences in 2020. People have lost their jobs, people are working from home, and definitely all these things have an impact on our well-being. And today we just want to understand what is mental health, what is mental well-being. And before we get to that, I'll allow my panelists to introduce themselves.
Thank you so much, Rimbai. My name is Fanmo Mavinkire, a seasoned social worker specializing in mental health and child protection based in the United Kingdom, Oxford. Pleased to meet you.
Thank you, Fanuel.
Okay, my name is Abigail Kawire. I'm based in Johannesburg, and I'm an accountant by profession. Yeah, so I'm just here as a human being, not as a social worker. Although I know we're gonna be talking about a profession that I'm not really well versed in, but I'm just here as a human being.
Great.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Renassen. I'm based here in South Africa, in Johannesburg, and I'm a social worker by profession. And I also do research into early childhood development. And so that's really my focus on mental health and bringing that into the family.
Okay. Thank you guys for introducing yourselves. Now we're gonna go into our discussion, our conversation on what is mental health. Believe me, this week as people were advertising this event, I've heard all sorts of interpretations of what is mental health. And to me, it was like, okay, I think we really need to have this conversation. Because I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there of what is mental health. So, guys, tell me, Fanuel, would you want to go first? What is your interpretation? What is mental well being? Fanuel? Okay, I think we are having some technical glitches. Jessica, would you want to go? Abigail? Any one of you guys?
Okay, I'm gonna the way I understand it,
Thank you very
um,
much,
I
Bimbai,
would.
for bringing such a very noble topic, quite relevant in the time we are living in. So, mental health actually is a very
Okay, I think Fanuel's network is delayed.
I think so.
Abigail, you can go ahead.
Okay, I was saying the way that I understand it, it includes our emotional well-being.
Bimbai.
I
Can you
would
hear
say,
me?
I think your network is delayed. You can speak after Abigail. Go
okay,
ahead,
now go ahead.
Abigail.
Okay, so it does include our emotional, our psychological, um, our social well-being. Um, I think that's what I understand in that term, mental health.
Okay, great. Jessica?
Yeah, I think mental health is one of these topics where, depending on who you speak to, they also have different feedback. And that's why everyone stands in a different kind of space when they talk about mental health. Because if you've experienced mental health issues, you have a very different experience to someone who may have just read about it or has a family member who's impacted by mental health issues. But actually, mental health is something that we experience on an everyday basis because life is stressful and we are living in a 21st century where we are working faster more often. We're not having as much downtime as we had before, particularly now in a lockdown. And I think that's pushed mental health to be a topic where if we're not talking about it, we're actually hindering ourselves and our communities by not actually tackling these issues of what is it and why does it impact us the way that it does.
Yeah, definitely. I think we are really impacted, especially this time with the lockdowns, as you're saying, Jessica. We are not able to socialize as we used to. And we are not able to meet with our friends. We're not able to go on holidays. And those are the things that keep us sane, you know? And it definitely has an impact on us. As you, Jessica, said it out, we have got things that are stressing us every day, and that definitely has an impact on our well-being.
Sure.
And how does it benefit us to have a good mental well-being, good mental health? How is it beneficial to us?
Okay, I would think it benefits me to have a good state of mind for the people that surround me. Let's say I'm not in good mental health, I would actually put other people that are around me in a not good position. Say, for example, I would be maybe shouting at everyone because I myself am not good. So it does benefit the people that surround me.
Okay, that's a great point that Abigail is portraying. It benefits the people around you. It definitely benefits you as well as an individual. Because I can imagine if I'm in a good mental well being state, if everything is fine, I'm enjoying my life, then it means I'm a productive person. I would assume.
Sure. I think it's also relevant to really talk about the fact that mental health is sometimes seen as a weakness, or like mental health issues are seen as a weakness. And sometimes people feel quite ashamed. There's quite a lot of stigma associated with it. And that's actually a hard thing to talk about in a work context or a social context, in your social group or in your peers, because I think previously mental health wasn't understood the way that it maybe is now, and maybe we've only just touched the tip of the iceberg in terms of what actually mental health looks like and how every single person's mental health is different to each other, and what may relax me or refresh me may not be as helpful to you. And that's really an interesting thing to tackle.
Yeah. And I think, as you're saying, people are getting a better understanding these days because there used to be these stereotypical views on mental health. And I think it's changing. People are getting to understand mental health a bit better with time. There's just an interesting view that has been posted by someone who is watching. She's saying, Janine van der Heever, she's saying self-care is even more important in these days and a good support system. So all that it relates to mental health, our well-being as individuals. And I like the point that you're portraying, Jess, that what looks good to you may not look good on me.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure.
Yeah.
I
Abigail,
think
do you have
there's
something?
no, go for it. It's fine.
No, I was just agreeing to what you were saying.
Okay, go ahead, Jess.
Oh, I was going to say, I think different cultures also handle mental health issues differently. And I found, particularly in practice, but also dealing with different families, that stress looks different and is accepted differently in different families. It's not only stress, but families who actually have a diagnosed mental illness in their family, or someone who's taking medication. Sometimes that's a really hard thing for people to tackle as a family, and different cultures seem to tackle that differently as well, which I think is quite relevant for us as an African discussion here, because European countries or countries in America would have tackled it differently and do tackle it differently because of the way that medicine is marketed and the way that their healthcare is set up. But in Africa, it's been a slow process to understand what mental health looks like, I think, in general.
Yeah, I think I agree to what you're saying. Also, from the comments, I see Steffi saying we need to speak more openly about mental health. And I think it's quite relevant because in our African context, for sure, it's something that we haven't embraced fully, I
Yeah.
think. Because I think we have these stereotypes that we continue in our communities, in our societies.
Sure.
Would you want to say something more on
Uh,
how
the one
people
other
can?
the one other thing I would maybe add, and perhaps Abigail would like to comment on this coming from a more corporate space, but in the working world, it's very different to go to your boss and say, I'm having a mental health issue, as opposed to I have the flu or I'm
Yeah.
struggling with diabetes or some kind of illness, chronic disease of some kind. And I'd be curious to know her experience being in a more corporate space, what that looks like, because I think that is actually a hard one where we're not seeing mental health necessarily the same way we see other health issues.
Yeah, I would say it is more difficult. Because I think I would actually say I think the social workers actually need to go more out there into companies and engage with our bosses or owners of our companies, because they so many people do not understand. I would say I also don't understand half the things that affect people. I would like to know more about those things, like what is it that I can look at someone and say, oh, this is a mental issue, because sometimes I would not understand it. I would think someone is just putting a stunt, or they don't want to come to work, those kind of things. They don't want to do the job, and I will end up not addressing the issue correctly,
Mm.
because it's not a physical injury that someone can see that there is your injury. Uh, so they really need to, they can't see how deep you've been cut by whatever is happening into your life, because it's
Yeah.
not physical. So um, I don't know. This thing is way bigger than we are. Uh, if there could be laws that actually, because some people do not, some company owners or directors, they would not do some things without any coercion from the government. So maybe if this thing, and if everyone could see it as big as I'm seeing it, there should be laws that are put in place
Mm.
by the government, such that people in higher places can assist, because some people are dying because
Sure.
the issues are not addressed appropriately in companies.
I
Yeah.
think that's quite an interesting view that you're putting out there, that because people cannot see the physical out of it, but I think there should be ways to identify these mental health problems. Because if bosses are not able to dictate by the looks of the physical, that's not enough. Like Jess was putting
Sure.
it across, that if one has a flu, then they go to see a doctor. The same way that if I'm impacted by stress, I should be able to go and see a therapist.
Yeah.
Because what bosses don't realize is, if I'm not feeling well, if I'm stressed about something, high chances I won't be productive in the workplace. You know,
Mm.
I'm more likely
I
to make
think,
mistakes. Yeah, go
yeah, for
ahead.
sure. Something that is not always tackled on this particular issue is that mental illness isn't treated the same way that we would then treat the flu. You can't just take a few tablets or some antibiotics and it's done. It's not like a broken leg that has a specific time that will take and then I'm healthy again. It's very different. And most people, or many people that I've spoken to and engaged with about this, that are wrestling often with this idea of being diagnosed with mental health issues, actually struggle with this idea that treatment is long term. You're in it for the long game. It's about
Yes,
really finding a coping strategy that works for you. And I
definitely.
say this because it's very close to my own home and my own way of living. Is if we're not very aware of what is going to trigger a mental health issue at some point, then we actually are quite vulnerable to not really understanding treatment and the way that we can be kinder to ourselves. I saw someone mentioned self care. I mean, that's like spot on, actually.
It
And
is.
and that's something that we could start to talk to our children about, because that's not something that previous generations ever dared talk about, really.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
saw Janine again commented, that is why employee wellness programs at work is so important. And I think these awareness programs needs to go out there so that employers can be able to realize and recognize when their employees are not being productive and
Sure.
when they need to seek help. And getting to that, how does one get to identify that there's a mental health issue going on here? There's a mental health challenge going on. How do we get to realize that?
I would say maybe for someone who knows you, they can notice some inconsistencies in your. Okay, I'm going to talk about maybe personal life, not work related. Inconsistencies in the way that you do things. Let's say you used to go out, um, um, set aside the COVID situation. Say we are in a normal, the way we used to live. You used to go out and meet some people, and then maybe you just don't feel like doing it. Nothing interests you.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that. Just being very aware of yourself, I think, helps a lot. But often the people around you are giving you feedback on your mood. I saw someone's comment. The comments are great. Nice job, audience.
Yes, they're doing a great job.
Yeah, that is fantastic. It's interesting to see sort of trends in people, and particularly your significant others or the people that are closest to you, your family who live with you or see you regularly. They may say to you, "It's very strange, you've been sleeping a lot lately," or "We notice that you're coming home and you're not engaging over dinner, or you're not really helping the way you used to." And sometimes that comes out as conflict, but it's actually just feedback from people picking up on trends that you yourself may not totally always be aware of. So now that we're talking about identifying mental health problems, I think a huge barrier is not really understanding oneself and avoiding what's within us. And that's actually quite a hard journey, that self-care process of understanding the way that we get stressed or the way that we respond to different situations. I know some people who a visit from their in-laws would like throw them completely, or maybe it's very stressful month end because their finances are not looking so good, or if there's a
Bills
stressful
have to be paid.
situation, sure, mundane problems. But it's also a very real issue when a person is struggling with mental health issues, and that can impact other members of the family because they're operating in their fullest capacity. And if you're caring for children or you're caring for the elderly, there is this knock-on effect. And so I think it's really important, Janine is also commenting on this, but to notice the behavioral changes and to open up those kind of dialogues in your home is really important. And I think it's hard. These conversations are hard. They're not easy.
They are.
It feels awkward sometimes to talk about. And there are other mental health issues or mental issues. Someone's just picked up here. I was going to just say it, sleeping disorders or eating disorders. Those kind of mental health issues, personality issues are also a very real reality for us. And in a children's space, a lot of these illnesses go undiagnosed for a very long time. And so people start to label children very quickly, or teenagers, and say, "Oh, well, he's just a difficult child, or is naughty."
She's moody.
Yes. Meanwhile, children are actually wrestling with their emotions and trying to understand what is happening for them. I
think that's where the challenge is, that people start labeling people, and then one then doesn't get to open up and speak openly about the issues that might be stressing them at that particular moment, because people are quick to judge, people are quick to label, as you say. You can go ahead, Jess.
I was just going to say, so not being able to talk about these things, even within a close community or a close family, I think it's not always healthy to speak about this with everybody. Sometimes you want your privacy, and I think that should also be respected. But to open up the dialogue in your homes and with the people that are close to you, because that's where it can start. That's where you can start to take the mask off and start to be a bit more real. And I say you, but I mean me. I mean myself. I think it's one of the things where we have to constantly check ourselves, because otherwise we start acting out of pain, actually, and stress. And it's that
But
cycle.
how do we do that? How do I check on myself? How best can I do
Sure.
that?
Yeah. So
Because
I mean,
maybe someone is listening and they don't know, how do I check on myself? Where do I start? How do I do that? You know?
Yeah, I would want to know as well, like there is situations where, you actually holding everyone else in the family, or maybe you're a boss at the company, you know that if you drop the ball, if you're not there is it's not there's no allowance for you to say, guys, I'm not okay. No one is going to understand it, because they are looking up to you, and you also don't want to disappoint the people that are really looking up to you. You're taking care of everyone in the family, and you're feeling it like it's weighing you down.
yeah.
So how do you check out and say, guys, without letting anyone else down? Because if you drop the ball, everyone else is gonna be not okay. So how do you check out and say, guys, I need time to myself, or I need can you give me a moment, or give me time so I can be okay before I can look after you?
Okay, that's quite interesting, because there's this common saying that people always say, that you can't give from an empty cup. But anyway, before I continue saying much, someone commented saying, why is the gentleman quiet? The ladies are taking over. Fanuel, go ahead. Can you respond?
I think he might be having some technical issues because he's frozen on my screen.
I think
He's
so.
frozen on mine, yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe
No,
he still has a delayed feedback.
yeah, I think he's having technical glitches. So
Okay.
let's
Well,
go
to
ahead,
keep
ladies.
sure. Well, to keep the conversation open, and maybe we then start to talk about the gender discrepancy, because that is actually, I mean, now we're getting a little bit controversial. I'm sure the audience will will appreciate that. But there is actually an issue with gender and mental health, and I think starting these types of conversations is such a wonderful step forward, with
Yeah.
when we talk about dealing with mental health in society, because it's not only women that suffer from it, absolutely not, and it's not only men, and it's not only older people, it's younger people. From a
Yes,
very young age, children can be depressed, and
of
children
course.
can suffer from anxiety. Bedwetting is a huge topic in the kind of early childhood development space, but it's often such a rooted issue in anxiety. So it's these type of things that if we start to talk about them, I think it does open up dialogue, and it opens up the freedom for someone to say, oh, but that happened to me, or I'm feeling that too. And
Yeah.
that can be the first step. I think, to jump back to your question about identifying mental illness, I think it is very difficult, and people often put up a lot of barriers. I know many instances of people who are also in denial for a very long time about whether or not mental illness was a reality for them. So I see how people are coming and going. Acknowledge. But
Yes.
that's something that I think is really important for this conversation, just to keep the conversation going, is that we need to be open for men to talk to their wives, to their bosses, to their friends, not necessarily to everybody, but the people that
Yes.
matter do need to know. And so I think communication is vital. But I think there are other coping strategies too, like exercise can be really healthy.
Yeah.
For people's mental health. And often if a person notices that they aren't exercising as much and they're feeling more stressed, that can be like a good indicator. Or if they're sleeping more or eating more or less than they would normally. So those behavioral issues are really key. And the one other thing that has been found to be really helpful, other than verbal communication, is writing. So the process of journaling and that self-reflection is quite important for learning about ourselves. And I say this with conviction because I actually need to do that far more than I do. And as a young adult, I used to do that really often. And now, as life gets busy and as a professional, I feel like, oh, I don't have time to write my feelings down on paper. But actually, that is probably what needs to happen for us to really begin to process and comprehend the loss in our lives, the struggles, the victories. Yeah.
And from what you are saying, I'm just going to go back a little bit from what you're expressing, that at least speaking to people that you can trust. I think that's the most important point that you are bringing home, that people need to speak out. You said you can't speak to everybody, but you can speak at least to people that are close to you so that they know what's happening. But this is something that I've also noticed. Say you get to work, those are the people that are close to you. People will go like, okay, good morning, morning, how are you? Before you even respond, how am I, people are already moving on.
Yeah.
And it looks
Limba, you could hear
like,
me.
yes, I can hear you, Fano. And it looks like people are not ready to listen. People are not ready to engage. And it looks like people do it for the sake of just asking, but they don't mean it. And I think
Sure.
that also becomes a drawback. And then people then don't engage more because people don't sound genuine when they ask these questions.
Mm, sure.
Welcome back, Abi and Fanuel.
Yeah, my phone was acting up.
Okay, you're back. Yes, would you want to contribute, Fanuel? Still having technical glitches. Um, okay, guys, so moving on, I think there's quite a number of things that compromise our mental well being, and I would love us to discuss. I know there's quite a range. When Jess started, you said
Thank you
there's
very much, Limba.
depending on where
I
you
hope you
are.
hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, so close.
But so far.
But so far.
So close, but so far. Fanuel, would you want to say something?
Yes, so
Yay, he's back.
can you hear me? Oh,
Yes, go
wonderful.
ahead.
So, what I was gonna say, now that I'm just taking it halfway, I was gonna talk about understanding mental health from childhood. Most often, you would notice that most children, I would talk about trying to understand mental health from a biological point of view, from a societal point of view, and a psychological point of view. How all these things interplay to contribute in how people are mentally well. So you would find that in children, most of the children are exposed to family violence. There is a lot of drug abuse within the families. You would find that most of the children, they suffer emotional neglect. So these actually manifest even when they go to school. Their participation, they are withdrawn. The confidence is very low. There is low morale. So that is how we are going to identify mental health problems within children. If they are not monitored at childhood, they transcend into adulthood, and they gonna create more problems for them in workplaces, in schools, and even when they become parents themselves. So mental health, I wouldn't want to view it as a subject that only comes with life pressure, but also that can emanate from childhood.
Hmm,
Quite interesting. You
definitely.
are just spot on what we were talking about. Like, what are the things that compromise mental health? And you are bringing substance abuse, domestic violence, things from childhood trauma, all those things. They are things that compromise on one's mental health. And I think the sad thing is, most often, we don't take our mental well-being so serious the way we take other uh, health aspects so serious. And I think that has an impact on us, because I would think, if I have a car, for it to continue running, I need to continuously put fuel on it. I need to continuously check the oil. I need to continuously check the water for it to continue running, right? If I'm
Yes.
to start a business today, I would make sure I put in the enough resources. I put in capital. I put in, if I need people to make the business grow and flourish, right? I
Yeah.
put in all the essential things that I need. But we neglect ourselves as humans. For us to continue growing and developing and flourishing, we need to take care of ourselves. And I would want us to discuss, what can we do to maintain a good mental well-being. Somebody spoke about self-care. What can we do for self-care for us to continue flourishing and developing?
I don't know if this, I stand to be corrected, but for me, I would say most of the times where I find myself in a compromised position, and I'm not mentally healthy. Sometimes I tend to not be able to say no to some people. And when because I cannot say no, I know I really know I have to say no, but I just can't say no.
I know, I
And
really
then
know I
it
have to
puts
say
me,
no.
yeah, but then, and then let me say I have a chair here that I want to sit on, and then someone says, "Can I have that chair?" But I only have one chair. And then I just have to give that person that chair, and then I'm going to be standing the whole time. So I want to
And
know,
your
guys, I'm
feet
posing a
start
question
hurting.
here. Yes. And then how do I learn to say no to anyone rather for my mental health?
Sure. And in some ways, it's sounding like boundaries become actually a challenge, not only in saying no, but then it's like, where do you draw the line for yourself? You know,
Yeah.
if you're constantly giving. And I think helpers, people who are in a sort of giving space, tend to do that quite easily. But also, people who care, you know, people who are caring people tend to become that. You also find people who become quite reclusive and they don't want social interaction, you know, and I think that's also something that can become quite a trigger, is large groups and social settings.
So what I also find very helpful when managing mental wellness is getting involved with others. Social communication with others. You don't need to be in social isolation. You don't get much help. So social care also, social self care also refers to being able to have enough sleep time. You know, I would turn back to Zimbabwe. We are always working overtime. It's not helpful. It's not mentally
Sure.
well health for us. So we need to have rest time. It also goes about the very simple practices of making sure that you work at particular hours, you take your rest, and that is very, very key to your mental wellness. And take walks, exercise with others. That is very, very key as well to mental wellness.
Yeah. Something else to bring
And
up.
also
Oh,
something that is so interesting with others, what they call ecotherapy, just going in the forest, observing, looking at nature. It's very refreshing and very mentally sound to our mental health.
yeah. I think something else to really highlight here is that it's also okay to need medication sometimes, and that is an important topic for us to also tiptoe into. I'm not saying that medication is the only solution or the only treatment route, but I think talk therapy is vital in all cases of mental health issues. It's important to talk about these things, and this conversation alone is such a refreshing opportunity for that. but also to destigmatize this idea that if you are taking medication that you are a crazy person, and to just be done with that, because actually sometimes people do need assistance. Sometimes these illnesses are neurological, sometimes they are biological, and it's a hormone issue, or it's whatever the case may be. And I think that's quite important. I'm not sure if anyone else on the panel would like to comment on the medication side of things, but it's definitely something I've found to be quite a stigma with families and those who are around people with mental illness.
Especially in the African context, people will tell you, no, you need to get over this. You need to be yourself. Get yourself together. Move on. Say someone is grieving, they've lost a loved one. People will tell you, but you still have other people that are around you that love you. Get over it, you know?
And people often joke about it. They often joke around saying that when someone is acting normally, I would say, they would say, "Oh, this person has forgotten to take their tablet or something." Like they joke around.
Yeah,
Yes.
you would also find that it's so interesting, because culture really does play a role in mental health, because these are the same values that are transferred from generation to generation that makes us understand what really is mental health. So going back to African culture, particularly I will speak about Zimbabwe, you would find that our understanding of mental health is extreme. When you are mentally ill, or it means you are somebody who is manic, who is not rehabilitable. You got that stigma. But we also need to appreciate that there is a little bit of understanding of mental illness within the. If you would go back to culture, there is what they call in Shona arikufungisisa, is thinking too much. That's depression. But the diagnostic yardstick now is not that developed to suit or to match that of the one from the developed world. But you feel the understanding is there, but the development and the yardstick for diagnosis is that what differs. But also there are ways of trying to rehabilitate their members of society who are mentally ill, who are not well, who have been. There's a lot of the way we do bereavement in Africa on its own is there an understanding that somebody is undergoing stress. If not managed well, this can manifest into depression. So there are ways, but probably not written down, so to speak.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. You are so rich in your experiences. Someone was just asking, maybe a quick one, if we can answer. Can mental health be genetic or spiritual? Letimoko is asking on Facebook, can mental health be genetic or spiritual?
Yeah.
If we can quickly respond, we are running out of time now.
Okay. So from the very beginning, mental health, we need to understand it from a biological, psychological, cultural, and social perspective. All these things interplay to contribute to mental health. So spiritual is a reality. Cultural things are a reality. Societal pressures, economic pressures, biology and genes, they are all contributing factors. Thank you.
Quick one, what's the difference between stress and mental health sickness and psychiatric cases? Oh my goodness, the questions are coming up.
The questions are coming, yeah. It's so wonderful though, because these are the questions that people actually do wonder and people do ask. So I think to put it on a spectrum, like put it on a scale, it doesn't have to be 1 or 100, it can be a 50, if that makes sense. Yes. So when the question is asking about a psychiatric case, in my mind, I'm thinking like a manic episode. And you do see those people who are not coping, and that then hospitalization is often the route that a person needs to go, and that's not a shameful route. Often that's needed in order to bring that person down to some kind of a normal, stable state, and then treatment can begin. But then you also get mild cases or severe cases of anxiety, which wouldn't be considered a hospital. You wouldn't need a hospital for anxiety potentially, but those small triggers start to build, and if they're not dealt with, can push you along the scale. I hope that's like a helpful way of thinking about it, because the difference between stress and mental sickness is stress is a reality. We can't get away from that. Sorry, audience, if that's what you are
Definitely.
hoping to hear. Stress is a very real part of life, and unfortunately, we now need to understand how to cope with it so it doesn't turn into a mental health issue that it's starting to affect our work and the way we operate in our families and in our lives.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. I think we have run short of time now, but this is an interesting conversation, and I think we need to have more of these conversations. I think it's also a broad topic. I
Very
think next
broad.
time we really need to categorize it, because I feel we didn't do justice to Abby's question where she was asking, I can't say no, what do I do? And there's so many questions that were popping up, and we couldn't address those in this single session. So definitely in the second season, we need to come up, guys, again and try to answer these questions that were coming up. But thank you for joining us today. I hope somebody learned something. Thank you
Definitely.
very much.
Thank you for
Thank you so
having
much.
us.
Bye.
Thank
And
you.
let's meet, guys, just as we finish the broadcast.
No, I
Lovely.
Thank you.